Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Humanitarian grounds may see Venezuelan frozen funds released. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 30th November 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Venezuelan frozen funds to be gradually released for humanitarian aid. This HDP Nightly Regional News with Tiana Cole tells us more.
Good evening, viewers. Welcome to the Monday's Regional News. We start with news from Venezuela. Venezuela's government and the opposition have asked the United Nations to manage and fund for billions of dollars now held in foreign banks, which will be gradually unfrozen to combat a humanitarian crisis in the oil-rich nation. Delegates announced in Mexico City last Saturday. The money held in Venezuelan-owned accounts overseas was frozen by the US and European banks after the United Nations ramped up sanctions under the administration of President Donald Trump, designed to pressure President Nicolas Maduro to take steps towards free elections. Talks between Maduro's government and his political opponents resumed in Mexico City last Saturday, mediated by Norway after being on ice for more than a year. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken welcomed the talks as an important step towards restoring democracy to Venezuelans. Following the announcement for the UN-administered funds, the U.S. Treasury Department issued a license to Chevron, the second largest U.S. oil company, to expand operations in Venezuela, allowing it to import Venezuelan crude into the United States. Maduro had said that the aim of the talks was to recover the kidnapped resources for public investment. Then we will see what other issues can be discussed. The funds are set to help stabilize the country's electric grid, improve education infrastructure, and deal with the impact of the year's deadly rains and flooding. It is part of a broad agenda that covers U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, conditions for the next presidential elections, and the status of hundreds of political prisoners, though these issues will not be discussed in this round of the talks. More than 7.1 million Venezuelans have left their country according to UN estimates this year. Many migrated to other Latin American countries or to the United States, as Venezuela battles high inflation and food and medicine shortages. More than half of Venezuelan migrants do not have access to 3 meals per day, UN estimates showed. In Venezuela, a survey by local universities this year showed some 78% of the population was worried about lack of food, compared with 88% in 2021. Some Venezuelans and U.S. critics raised concern that liquidity injection could boost Maduro's credentials before the country's 2024 elections.
In an address to the nation on Sunday, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre outlined initiatives which his administration intends to undertake to address the current crime wave in St. Lucia. Zane Romulus of the DBS News World has more.
A call has gone out from the Prime Minister, Philip Pierre, for individual and collective action in his address to a population fearful for their safety amidst the spiraling crime rate. Theft and murder seems to be the order of the day, with 4 young lives cut short in the space of 3 days last week, and a string of robberies targeting businesses almost daily. The underlying causes of crime make it a complex issue that cannot be left to only the police and the government to solve, says the Prime Minister.
We need you, the citizens, to promote a zero tolerance towards criminality of all forms. Small infractions of the law, not speaking the truth, threats, malicious gossip, envy, peddling lies and hatred on the internet and airways, domestic violence and child abuse may appear small in comparison to homicides, but we know how seemingly small issues snowball into larger societal problems.
Aside from what it has implemented over the past 16 months to combat crime, the nation's leader listed other measures that the government will undertake to augment the capacity of law enforcement. This includes formalizing an interagency intelligence committee which will be tasked with combating serious and organized crime.
We'll review the promotion policy for the police. We'll commence the construction of a new Halls of Justice. We'll operationalize the Swift Justice Project to reduce the backlog of cases and to inspire confidence in our judicial system. We will intensify efforts to detect and eliminate corruption among members of the police force and other law enforcement agencies. We will introduce drones to assist in crime detection. We will strengthen and increase community policing and mobile and foot patrol by the police. We will commence the reconstruction of the custody suites, which was inadvisably and hastily demolished in 2021.
He also announced that the police would intensify searches and roadblocks in the coming weeks. This, he says, will cause some inconveniences to members of the public.
I urge the public to be understanding and cooperate with the police during these trying times. In November this year, the police confiscated 29 firearms and over 470 rounds of ammunition. The police are expected to make maximum use of the powers conferred upon them by the law to bring an end to the upsurge of homicides in our country. And I can assure the police that they have the full support of the government as they continue to battle the criminal elements who are insisting on causing havoc and havoc in our country.
Citizens can expect a comprehensive social intervention program to be announced very shortly, says the Prime Minister, to complement the law enforcement measures.
We continue to provide safety nets for our vulnerable citizens within our tight fiscal space. These include enhanced social projects and food and gas subsidies, including rehabilitation programs for released offenders. Only on Tuesday, we borrowed from the Caribbean Development Bank $5 million to assist the vulnerable in our country. Over 8,000 citizens will be impacted. We'll launch an island-wide cleanup campaign starting next week to clear verges, roadside hedges, and overhanging branches to increase visibility to pedestrians and motorists, and we have them maintained. Cabinet has agreed to convert the George Charles Secondary School compound to a facility for the rehabilitation of young offenders.
The highest number of homicides the nation has recorded to date was 75 in 2021. There are fears that by year-end, this number could be surpassed. For the DBS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. The acting Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, says addressing the island's gun violence has to be a priority for the government, police, and may require some regional and international cooperation and coordination. Don Nicholas of the DBS News World reports.
With St. Lucia now on homicide number 66 so far for 2022, with 1 month still to go in the year, Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire is concerned about the number of guns entering the country. According to him, unless local authorities get a grip on that situation, crime, especially gun-related ones, will continue to happen. He believes St. Lucia can't do it alone and will need to partner with international counterparts as the problem stems beyond St. Lucia's shores. Social programs and added resources to the police will not cut it.
How do we address a situation? We can spend a lot of money on social programs. It will kind of mitigate a bit. We can spend a lot of money equipping the police and giving the police the support necessary. They can frontally attack it. But if there is a supply line of guns constantly into the country that we almost incapable of stopping because of the nature of our borders and the people who are bringing them in and their contacts overseas, then we have a problem that is beyond our shores. Now, if you analyze it, this is not restricted just to St. Lucia. Look at how it's exploding in Barbados, in some of the other islands. Some a lot more than others. Huh?
He says St. Lucia is at the stage where, apart from local law enforcers getting tough on the criminal elements, the battle against the proliferation of guns must be fought on an international front.
I think we've reached a point where we really have to say that our law enforcement agencies really have to come down hard and deal with it. It is the short-term threat we have. Government has put more resources in social intervention to deal with the circumstances of the communities that are most affected by crime. So we can change people's mindsets, we can change attitudes, we can change approaches to conflict resolution. But we also have to pursue a very activist international effort for the people responsible for guns to address it.
According to Dr. Hilaire, if the criminal elements are allowed to continue smuggling firearms into the country at will, controlling the crime scourge will become impossible. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
Divisions go to the polls in weeks. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline has that report.
Premier Mark Brantley of the Concerned Citizens Movement-led Nevis Island administration announced a December 2022 date for elections. In his Thursday, 24th November televised address, Premier Brantley outlined achievements made by his CCM-led administration and called on Nevisians to participate in the electoral process.
I have today advised His Excellency the Governor General, after consultation with the Honorable Prime Minister, that the Nevis Island Assembly should be dissolved as of Friday, the 25th day of November, 2022. Nomination day for the election of representatives to the Nevis Island Assembly shall be Monday, December 5th, 2022. Election day on the island of Nevis shall be Monday, December 12th, 2022. In this election, you will have a clear choice between a solid record of performance of your CCM and government and the promises being made by the other side. I believe that our record has been an exceptional one despite the grave challenges. I commit this CCM party to waging a campaign of ideas and of hope, rather than a campaign of vilification and vitriol. I urge you, brothers and sisters, to engage in the process, to listen to the issues, and to make your vote count for the continued development and advancement of this land called Nevis that we are all privileged to call our home.
Recently, the Evangelical Association wrote to the Premier, advising that a December election could be disruptive to the Christmas activities. However, it would not be the first time that Nevis's elections have been in December. Denbert reporting for SK Newsline.
Shortage of nurses in Jamaica chokes the health sector there. Here is Nicola Brown of CVM Live.
The shortage of nurses in the public health sector has pushed several medical institutions in the country to seek assistance from within the region. Acting CEO of the University Hospital of the West Indies, Fitz Mitchell, says as the hospital battles with limited healthcare workers, they now depend on Cuba for healthcare professionals.
We want to continue our relationship with getting nurses from Cuba, the specialist nurses, and again, I want to say thank you for providing them. They have been very good, and they have helped our health services here at the University Hospital, I'm sure, throughout Jamaica very well. So we're happy with that. More technical support would be possible. We have seen what the Cuban technicians can do, and we would want to continue with that.
During a recent meeting at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel in New Kingston, Senior Medical Officer at the Kingston Public Hospital, Dr. Natalie Wiley, says Jamaica's decision to partner with Cuba will provide much needed assistance in the sector. She highlights the shortage of specialist nurses.
In total, we are in need of over 100 nurses. And certainly when you look through the category of nurses, then the shortage is even more in the area of the specialist nurses. So nurses who have done things like critical care nursing and some of the other specialty areas that are offered at the Kingston Public Hospital.
Dr. Wiley notes the hospital has also been impacted by the continued migration of nurses.
The hospital is in receipt of resignations, sometimes almost daily.
Nicola Brown, CVM Live.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.